All right, guys. So when it comes to Noam Chomsky, I'm kind of all over the place. I think he's a good guy, but I do disagree with him on certain things that he talks about. I guess that's the case with about anyone. But Noam. So there's a lot of stories that's been flooding for a while now about how Noam Chomsky lost his ability to talk. That's not entirely true. He can't speak like he used to. And he's always had a sort of slow demeanor that's dry to some people, but I don't really care that much. Well, it can be difficult to listen through, but he's extremely smart. And at least from my perspective, even if I disagree with him, he doesn't lie. He doesn't just straight up fucking fabricate shit. But I believe that he is very well versed in the Palestine Israel conflict, and his words can be very useful for people who aren't as informed. So I'm going to play this clip and then I'll kind of throw my thoughts in at the end.
You want to make it, okay, but then just admit I'm out of the world, distinct from the world. Now, yes, totally distinct. If you really want to play that game, the Palestinians have more of a right to claim to be descendants of the population from 2,000 years ago than I do. My ancestors probably come from the Caucasus. Their ancestors come from Palestine. The Canaanim were correct about this. So you don't want to get into that game. Biblical rights have no status. Now let's turn to legality and occupation. There is 100% agreement among all relevant international institutions, not just the United Nations Security Council, including the United States in unanimous declarations, but the International Court of Justice, the World Court, the Red Cross, which administers the Geneva Conventions, Israel's own top legal authorities, all agree that the Jewish settlements in the West Bank are in violation of international law. 100% agreement. Israel doesn't agree, fine. Israeli Jews want to live in some little bubble of their own, they're entitled to do so. But you can't overlook the fact that that every relevant international institution disagrees on the question of legality. Same with occupation. Every relevant international institution recognizes that Israel is occupying not only the West Bank, but that it's also the occupying authority in Gaza. So as far as terms go, the correct terms are Greater Israel, Israel's illegal expansion into the West Bank. It's hundreds of thousands of settlers there. That's all part of a Greater Israel that Israel intends to integrate within Israel proper and is developing the infrastructure and the programs to do so.
This is the 35th year of a harsh, brutal, and vicious occupation, supported unilaterally by the United States, constant terror and atrocities. Suppose Palestinians say, well, we're under terrorist attack for 35 years, therefore we have a right to carry out suicide bombings.
Which is what they say.
Do you accept this? Does anybody accept it?
Nobody accepts
All
it.
right, then how come everyone accepts the Israeli claim to be doing it, which is a much weaker claim? Because after all, there's no symmetry in this situation. They are the military occupiers. Palestine isn't occupying Israel. And this isn't just started now. It's going on years ago. I mean...
So does that, in your mind, justify
no,
the
it does
suicide
not.
bomb?
Of course not. It
Doesn't.
doesn't in anybody's
So it
mind.
invalidates both sides.
Those who defend suicide bombing, and there are very few, don't have a leg to stand on. Those who defend the Israeli atrocities, including the U.S. government, most intellectual opinion, a good bit of the West generally, yeah, they don't have a leg to stand on either, and they have a much weaker position. For 35 years, there has been a harsh, brutal, miserable military occupation. There has not been a political settlement. The reason why there has not been a political settlement is that the United States unilaterally has blocked it for 25 years. Is it supported by the entire world, including the majority of the American people? The answer to that question is yes. There is a political settlement that has been supported by virtually the entire world, including the Arab states, the PLO, Europe, Eastern Europe, Canada.
Didn't Barack put that on the table?
No, he did not.
He did not.
It is also supported by the majority of the American people. It has just been reiterated by Saudi Arabia. The U.S. has unilaterally blocked it for 25 years. What Barack put on the table, the population doesn't know this because people like the Western media, the media in Canada and the United States don't tell them. Like, you can check and see how often you, for example, or others have reported what I just said. Don't bother checking. The answer is 0. The Barack proposal in Camp David, in the Barack Clinton proposal, in the United States, I didn't check the Canadian media. In the United States, you cannot find a map, which is the most important thing, of course. Check in Canada and see if you can find a map. You go to Israel, you can find a map. If you go to scholarly sources, you can find a map. Here's what you find when you look at a map. You find that this generous, magnanimous proposal provided Israel with a salient east of Jerusalem, including the city of Ma'ale Adumim, which was established primarily by the Labor government in Clinton in order to bisect the West Bank. That salient goes almost to Jericho, breaks the West Bank into 2 cantons. Then there's a second salient to the north, going to the Israeli settlement of Ariel, which bisects the northern part into 2 cantons. So we've got 3 cantons in the West Bank, virtually separated. All 3 of them are separated from a small area of East Jerusalem, which is the center of Palestinian commercial and cultural life and of communication. So you got 4 cantons, all separated from the west, from Gaza, so that's 5 cantons, all surrounded by Israeli settlements, infrastructure development, and so on, which also incidentally guarantee Israel control over the water resources, the reason. Last comment, this does not rise to the level of South Africa 40 years ago, when South Africa established the Bantustans. That's the generous, magnanimous offer.
Okay.
And there's a good reason why maps weren't shown, because as soon as you look at the map, you see it.
All right. However, that's the characterization of it. But let me just say, Arafat didn't even bother putting a counter proposal on the table.
No, that's not true.
They negotiated at Taba afterwards.
That's not true.
But I guess my question is,
that's
if they don't continue to negotiate,
that's totally false. And
that's false.
Not only is it false, but not a single participant in the meetings says it. That's a media fabrication.
That Arafat didn't put a counter proposal on the table?
They had a proposal. They proposed the international consensus, which has been accepted by the entire world, the Arab states, the PLO, the majority of the American. Sorry, they proposed a settlement which is in accord with an overwhelming international consensus.
My question is,
and is blocked by the United States.
The problem that people look at now, the Middle East, is they say it's spun out of control. How do you get back to? First way we get back is by trying the experiment of minimal honesty. Okay, let's try that experiment. If we try the experiment of minimal honesty, we look at our own position and we discover what I just described, that for 25 years, the United States has blocked the political settlement, which is supported by the majority of the American population and by the entire world, except for Israel, virtually. I mean, there's some marginal exceptions. So the first thing we do is accept the honesty to look at that. We take a look at Camp David, and we see, yeah, it was the same. The United States was still demanding a Bantustan-style settlement and rejecting the overwhelming international consensus and the position of the American people. We then discover that the United States immediately moved to enhance terror in the region. So let's continue. On September 29th, Ehud Barak put a massive military presence outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque, very provocative. When people came out of the mosque, young people started throwing stones. The Israeli army started shooting. Half a dozen people were killed, and it escalated. The next couple of days, there was no Palestinian fire at this time, and this is all in occupied territories. In the next couple of days, Israel used U.S. helicopters. Israel produces no helicopters, uses U.S. helicopters to attack civilian complexes,
killing about a dozen people and wounding several dozen, Clinton reacted to that on October 3rd by making the biggest deal in a decade to send Israel new military helicopters, which had just been used for the purpose I described, and of course would continue to be. The US press cooperated with that by refusing to publish the story. To this day, they have not published the fact. It continued. When Bush came in, one of his first acts was to send Israel a new shipment of the most advanced military helicopters in the arsenal. That continues right up to a couple of weeks ago with new shipments. You take a look at the reports from, say, Jenin by British correspondents like Peter Beaumont in the London Observer. He says the worst atrocity there was the Apache helicopters buzzing around, destroying and demolishing everything. Yeah, this is enhancing terror. And we may easily continue. We can take, also, let me continue. On December 14th, the Security Council tried to pass a resolution calling for what everyone recognizes to be the obvious means for reducing terror, namely sending international monitors. That's a way of reducing terror. This happened to be in the middle of a quiet period, which lasted for about 3 weeks. The US vetoed it. 10 days before that, there was a meeting at Geneva of the high contracting parties of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which has unanimously held for 35 years that it applies to Israel. The meeting condemned the Israeli settlements as illegal, condemned a list of atrocities, willful destruction of property, murder, trials, torture, and so on and so forth.
So, okay.
What happened to that meeting? Oh, I'll tell you what happened to that meeting. The US boycotted it. Therefore, the media refused to publish it. Therefore, no one here knows that the United States once again enhanced terror by refusing to recognize the applicability of conventions which make virtually everything the United States and the Israel are doing there a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions, which means a war crime. Just a minute. These conventions were established in 1949 in order to criminalize the atrocities of the Nazis in occupied territory. They are customary international law. The United States is obligated as a high contracting party to prosecute violations of those conventions. That means to prosecute its own leadership for the last 25 years.
At least I didn't do it for like 15 minutes this time. So originally, this was apparently partially clickbait because he really didn't go into, well, he may have been talking about it as like the broad point about October the 7th and why was it caused, but it didn't really mention it. He seems to just be kind of going into why it's not synonymous on both sides, why why Israel is evidently the bad guy and why the US is complicit and has been covering up for their shit forever. Yeah, so I'll at least change the name on my end. But yeah, there's far more there than even I was aware of, but many of the things I've checked into myself, like numerous times. It's like easily fact checkable. The amount of times that like there have been basically mandates from the entire fucking world in how to solve this problem. And every time we get there, the US vetoes it, boycotts, whatever. They meddle and fuck it up. And then like Israel plays this game and acts like they're the victims when they're the ones that's like this. It's brought up recently that like they're committing a genocide, and they are. But this has been going on long before October the 7th. And this shows the extent at which US media is not independent. Because if they were, then it would be like this information that's factual, by the way, would just be everywhere, but they don't report on it. And that should tell you something. That should tell you pretty much all you need to know. But yeah, so the obvious that I just want to throw out, that because it gets pushed so frequently by retarded people that know absolutely nothing about the situation. Israel is not just defending itself. They were committing atrocities long before October the 7th. Long before. So, Chomsky himself points out that no one is saying that like it excuses fucking suicide bombings or whatever. And that's true. But I will say, from my own point of view, they're not like equal at all. So all I can say is if I were in the situation to where I just happened to be unlucky enough to be born in fucking Gaza, for example, and I had what would they call an open air prison for a long period of time where I am not allowed to leave, and I'm treated basically like a second class citizen, frequently over the course of many, many years, my people are shot at and fucking like bullshit fucking excuses are made to attack, claiming that we did something that we never did, and just stealing the fucking land of my people. Especially, again, this is generations at this point. I would more than likely become an extreme, like, radical fighter against Israel, even knowing that I'm probably going to lose. I'm just telling you what I would do. And I find it hard to believe that most people wouldn't do the same. There might be a lot of people that like would just say it, but I think they're just lying. They're just not being honest. So yeah, it's clear Israel's not this fucking like bastion of Western freedom that it's fucking like pushed as in Western media. It's bullshit. They are essentially and have been a pocket of Western influence, primarily the United States. That's the only reason why they fucking exist. It's the only reason why they have the amount of manpower they have had over the years. Simply, all you got to do is look at the fucking arms shipments to Israel from the United States over the years. Track the amount of money. So, in order to keep that what it considers an important strategic investment in the region, in the Middle East, the United States basically gives them carte blanche. They can do whatever the fuck they want. And they've allowed them to do whatever the fuck they want for a long, long time. This is not new. Yeah, Israel's not just defending itself. Israel didn't just, like, of course they ramped shit up drastically, but they've been committing fucking atrocities against fucking Palestinians for decades. And then all of a sudden, October the 7th happened, which, by the way, it's not great. I'm not saying it's fucking like I condone it or anything. But my point is the representation is not equal. No one is told about the decades of fucking abuses and flagrant violations of international law that even fucking Israel admits is against international law. Everyone knows it. None of that is brought up. You're painted this pretty little picture of like these innocent people and they're Jews, and it was sad that they even went through the Holocaust, and it was, by the way. But the point I'm making is you're only shown that they're like these poor Jews. They've had to go through all this shit through all this time. And yeah, so this isn't even against Jews, by the way, which I have to keep repeating because of the stupid fucking like straw man argument that people fucking throw that like it's anti-Semitism, because it's not. There are many, many Jews who are against Israel's fucking actions. It's not anti-fucking Jewish to call Israel evil pieces of shit, because they are. And when I say Israel are evil pieces of shit, I'm talking about the government. I'm talking about Netanyahu and his fucking whole mass of fucking extremist right-wing fucking crazy fuckers that just want to exterminate all Palestinians. They make up bullshit all the time to fucking excuse it. All you hear is the shit that the West, the United States, which is complicit, wants you to hear. That's it. Also, just, it doesn't take much. Follow the fucking money. Look into AIPAC. AIPAC is essentially Israel's lobby, which is legal bribery toward any important function. Like, they pay off all sorts of fucking congressmen. They do all sorts of like fucked up, shady propaganda shit. And it ensures that, at least to some extent, the people aren't aware of what the fucked up shit that's actually going on. And these are not conspiracy theories. These are facts. It's an absolute fact that this big story that was blown up all over Western media about on October the 7th, fucking Hamas was like cutting off the heads of babies and shit. That was fabricated. It was fake. One of the people that actually was part of a big story, one of the most hugest fucking stories that got so much attention, was a very specific family and a woman, and it was claimed that she was raped and shit. And the brother himself is on camera later. Of course, they don't show you this on fucking like mass media, the mainstream media. But he just straight up says that was fake. That's not true. It is true that they were held at gunpoint for a while Hamas was there. But essentially what they had to say was like, they were very nice given the circumstances. Essentially, they were doing what they felt they had to do because they were left no other option. But they didn't want to just murder people and fucking rampage and just slaughter. That's all lies. That's all bullshit. And most of the people killed, according to this exact same family, were killed by Israel. They killed their own fucking people. So yeah, I encourage anyone to do their fucking research before they start fucking making these sweeping generalizations based on bullshit spread by fucking Western propaganda outlets, which is basically all of mainstream U.S. media. Thank you for your time.